All right, welcome back. Unfortunately, you're seeing me in another video, and the reason being is tomorrow, that'll be March 8th, 2024, we have a slight risk of severe weather. Made a video about it a couple of days ago, and between then and now, things have uptrended just a little bit. Um, the parameter space is a little bit higher end. However, there's still some limiting factors that could be a detriment to this event. So, by no means is it a slam dunk, but it's maybe a little more intense than we originally thought it was. So, what we're going to do is we're going to go over the risk. We're going to go over what the Storm Prediction Center has put out. We're going to look at some current data, and we're going to look at some close range modeling data and get a look at just what we might be looking at as far as severe weather. Um, so yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. As of right now, we have a categorical slight risk. Okay, that's going to be a 2 out of 5. And that's going to extend from about the Tupelo corridor in Oxford down through the entire state of Mississippi, most of the southern to central portions of Alabama, as well as the north half of Louisiana, southern half of Arkansas, eastern Texas, and the southeast corner of Oklahoma. In that slight risk, it is driven by a 5% tornado risk, and that's really broad and extends throughout the whole risk, as well as it's surrounded by a 2% tornado risk that extends all the way up into even portions of the Memphis metro and northern parts of the Little Rock, Arkansas, and as far west as DFW, and as far east as maybe Auburn, Alabama. As far as the wind, we have a broad 15% surrounded by a 5%, really central on that southern Mississippi, Alabama to Louisiana region. And we even have a significant hail risk with a significant severe hatched area over here in that east northeast Texas, southwest Arkansas, northwest Louisiana area. Now in this video, what we're going to mainly cover is we're going to cover the Mississippi threat. Now, if you'd like to see a little in-depth analysis on the other areas of the threat, you can go over to my TikTok, where you can view the videos for free online, and I go into a little bit better deep analysis on the other portions of the risk and what effects they have. But for right now, we'll just stick to Mississippi, and from there, what we'll go ahead and do is we'll look at some observed data, just real briefly. This is the observed 500 millibar map. As you can see, a broad, positively tilted trough working its way through the Four Corners region. You can see that vorticity maximum right here. You got winds upward of 60 to 80 knots, rounding the base of this trough. And it's impeding on the region. As of right now, we have broad westerly flow, and that's just going to continue as we go through the day tomorrow. And if we sit here and take a look at our surface cyclone, you can see some consolidation starting over here in the Texas Panhandle, and that's going to work its way eastward and northeastward as it strengthens. And these winds will continue to intensify on the east side of it. So we do have a nice surface cyclone that's starting to organize, and that will continue to intensify as we go through the event tomorrow. What we're going to do now is we're going to take a look at some modeled data. Now, this is the short range HRRR model, and what it stands for is High Resolution Rapid Refresh. And this is basically our closest range model that we have. It updates every hour on the hour with new data and just prints out an output for the next 18 to 48 hours. So we get the 48-hour intervals at each 6-hour interval. So every 6 hours we get a 48-hour HRRR model run. And every hour in between we get a 18-hour model run. So looking broad at the 500 millibars, the same map that we were looking at in the observed data, but just broad westerly flow. And even characterized with a little bit of divergence. You can see the wind barbs going this way and then a little bit southwesterly. And then over here you have straight westerly winds. So a big void over here that's going to be occurring. This is tomorrow at 3 p.m. And that'll incur some broad scale lift over here in the open warm sector. So definitely you can check the large scale lift aspect off your severe weather checklist. Going down to 850 millibars, this is going to be our low level jet. And a little bit more intense than we originally thought, even as early as 3 p.m. We have this broad southerly jet of 40 to 50 knots, just impeding upon the entire area of southern Mississippi and western Alabama. So the low level jet isn't going to be an issue. We should have enough, well, more than enough low level shear. Let's go a little bit into later the afternoon, and you'll be able to see that as we go further, it only strengthens even further as it moves off to the east. But once we're a little past 0Z, which is going to be 7 p.m., it really leaves our area of interest, which is over here in southern Mississippi. So, and wherever this 850 millibar jet goes, this is where our tornado threat is going to be, or at least maximized. So wherever you see that maxima, that's where your threat is going to be maximized and where we need to be paying attention the most. So as of, I would say, noon to 6 p.m., your low-level jet is going to be strongest over southern Mississippi. So that's when I would expect our greatest tornado threat to be. All right, we've already established that we have the lifting mechanism needed to lift thunderstorms into the environment. But we can go over here and look at the moisture quality, and oh boy, do we have moisture. We have upper 60s to low 70s dew points exceeding all throughout the southern portion of the risk. And you can see the differential heating boundary right here where you see your 62s right above 70 dew points. So this is going to be your warm frontal boundary. Looks to be somewhat draped along the I-20 corridor, right in that Jackson vicinity. And just below it, you have dense, deep moisture in the lower 70s. Really impressive moisture content, especially for this early in the severe season. But yeah, this is excessive moisture. So storms, without a doubt, if they form and are able to sustain themselves, they're going to have the fuel to be able to go on for a while. Storm fuel is not going to be an issue. Alright, and something interesting I wanted to show you is the cloud cover. Now, this is usually an issue down here with setups in the Deep South, and that's not going to be an exception today. The reason why you get overspread cloud cover throughout the region is as that low-level jet is transporting that warm, moist air into the lower levels, it saturates the lower levels of the atmosphere, and you get this dense, broad cloud cover. Now, the reason why this can be an issue is what it can do is it can make your low-level lapse rates a lot less steep. And what your low-level lapse rates do is that's how quickly a parcel of air is able to rise. So if your lower lapse rates are poor, that means storms are going to take a lot longer to get going. And the longer they take to get going, the less opportunity they're going to have to produce tornadoes. The reason being is because they're more likely to have something interrupt that cycle. If the steeper your lapse rates, the quicker those storms can get up and going and be mature, and the sooner they can become mature, the sooner they can produce tornadoes. But there is a good wide expansive warm sector, so if a storm was able to start back here in the favorable moisture and come on shore and work its way through that southern Mississippi area, it would definitely have a chance, but it might take a little bit longer than it normally would, say, in the plains because of these poor low-level lapse rates because of the cloud cover. So something to definitely keep an eye on. Speaking of instability, we're over here at the surface-based instability, and we have more instability than was previously forecasted. We were previously only forecasting about 1,000, maybe, joules per kilogram of CAPE, but we're clearing well over 1,500, approaching 2,000. So there's an absolute powder keg going on down here, and all it needs is that lifting mechanism that's going to come in through the evening through that large-scale divergence in the mid-levels. And what it's going to be able to do is it's going to be able to use this to have storms explode. Look at some composite parameters right here. And you can see it's really maximized. This is your energy helicity index, and this is your low-level spin and your low-level instability that comes together. And these are going to be your favorable parameters for severe weather. You really see it maximized down here in that southern Mississippi, that Hattiesburg region, all the way down to New Orleans. So that region at about 2 to 6 p.m. is when I would be most concerned for a tornado threat if it was to evolve. And going down looking at the STP just for fun, you can see right there it's maximized. As those steeper lapse rates come in, you got your favorable thermodynamics and kinematics as they all come together, and that would be your most likely location if tornadoes were to form. Now, given these upper level values, any tornadoes that are able to sustain, if you do get a discrete supercell to be able to take advantage of this, they likely would be able to produce strong tornadoes if possible. But it's still very conditional. We're not expecting those type of tornadoes per se. It's not exactly forecasted that way, but the environment does hold that parameter space. We call this a really high ceiling, but really low floor event. And for fun, looking at the composite reflectivity, and you can see it very clearly here. You can see the mode up north is much more messy and clustered, and down here you get these convective bands with these little semi-discrete supercells that are able to work their way through this region. And really, this is the look you see a lot down here in the deep south. Really clustered, really messy. But anything that's able to mature through mergers and be able to sustain by itself for any period of time through this warm sector, it might take an hour or two for it to get going, but once it goes, it's going to go. A little concerning of a trend that I was noticing, and what you're looking for through these updraft helicity maps, you're looking for just constant trends of areas to watch out for. And down here you see this specific little stripe right here. This is rotation in the lower levels that the model is able to paint the picture of. And if one run was to say this, I wouldn't give it as much salt, but if we go back to the morning models this morning, you see the same type of thing, a little bit more enhanced, but you see right in the same region, you see a big long strip right there in that favorable environment. Let's go back one more run. And then you see the same thing again right here in this region. So that's the only thing that has a little bit more concerning, is it's starting to narrow in on a little corridor right here in that Hattiesburg region of southern Mississippi, where there might be a slightly elevated tornado threat with any cells that are able to mature and persist. So in my opinion, your greatest tornado threat is going to be right here in this region. It wouldn't shock me to see a 10%, 3 out of 5 risk enhanced be issued for this area down here. And the thing is about these updraft helicity tracks, you got to remember where the warm front was. I'll go over and show that to you. Your warm front's way down here. So anything that forms over here is likely going to be elevated, and it's not going to have as much of an opportunity to be able to produce significant, severe, or at least tornadoes. But what it might have the opportunity to do is produce some large hail. So as we get into the weaker moisture, slightly more not as mixed, or a little more less of a degree of the moisture axis, it might tend to be a little bit more on the elevated side, so that would promote your large hail risk. So anything I would say in southeast Arkansas, northeast Louisiana, and that central Mississippi right around the Yazoo City region, that's going to be your favored corridor for that strong to large hail going into the afternoon and evening. And finally, what I want to look at is an overall composite of the environment that we're looking at compared to other environments that we've seen in the past. Now, as far as parameter spaces, the environment, this is an upper level environment per se. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to have, upper end type of results. That means there is an environment there to support it. So instability is moderate to high, shear is midway through moderate, lift is moderate to high, and then moisture is really high as we get into those low 70 dew points. So that just shows you that the parameter space is in place for there to be significant severe weather, but there's other issues such as the cloud cover, the poor low level lapse rates, and the overall storm mode and how long those storms are going to take to mature is really the limiting factors of this event. So by no means is it a slam dunk, but it's definitely, whenever you get an environmental space like this that has the potential to be a super high-end event, you definitely want to take your precautions as if those high-end impacts are expected. So absolutely make sure you got a way to get warnings. Make sure you got that mode on your phone that lets you know the emergency management. Make sure you have multiple sources, whether that's TV, weather app, whether you follow Storm Chasers on Twitter, whether it's our page, just find a way to make sure that if a warning is issued for your area, that you have a way to receive it and have a way to act and protect your family. I will likely be chasing, probably down there in the Hattiesburg area. And when I get there, I'll do an update tomorrow morning. Probably not as formal as this, but it'll be a little update as to what I see. Just looking over the morning observed soundings and the observed environment that we're going to be dealing with. And just in case any other significant implications are implied overnight through the models, I'll be sure to relay that to y'all and make sure to let y'all know. But as far as we go with this right here, this is what we're expecting. And if you've made it this far, I appreciate you watching, putting your faith in us.